Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you step by step how to paint this fall landscape. And I'm really excited about this one because I've got some new colors. Now I took you guys along. If you're on Patreon, then you guys got to go along with me on a little trip to my favorite art store on Vancouver Island. So I'm all stocked up on all of my neon colors. I've got 11 by 14 stretched canvas. It's pre-primed, and I've also got a few brushes here that I'm going to go over. Okay, we've got a liner brush. We've got a flat brush. This one is a number 11. And I'm also going to be using my number 30 big, large blending Filbert brush, as well as an oval mop. Now this one's a 1 inch. Of course, you can use any other variations of these brushes, and you can definitely follow along with regular colors that you have in your palette. You don't necessarily have to have these neon paints, okay? Any orange, yellow, autumn colors that you want to choose, just follow along with the steps to help create the light shadow in this painting and blending. So stick around, hit subscribe now, and let's get painting. So I'm going to go over the colors that we're using today for this painting. For the sky, we're going to be using light ultramarine blue. We're also going to be using some titanium white. We'll be using some cadmium yellow light hue, burnt sienna, a little bit of Mars black, a little bit of luminous yellow, and luminous orange. So we're going to start with a sky, and I'm just going to wet my canvas a little bit. The brush that you want to start with for this painting is your large blending brush. This happens to be a Filbert, but you could also use a square brush, flat brush. It's just for getting the coverage. So I'm going to get just a little bit wet here. What this does is it helps slick the canvas so that the paint spreads really evenly and easily. There are other ways to prep your canvas. This is just one. It doesn't cost a thing and it works really well. So I'm just going to take some of my blue and I'm just going to directly pull and squeeze it over the top of the canvas, and we'll begin. Same brush. Nice long sweeping strokes. I'm going to get the side of my canvas here a little bit too. Okay, so I'm going to wash this brush out, and then I'm going to switch over to a smaller one. So I've got a number 30 here, and I'm going to use this one to start adding light to the sky. So I'm going to take some of my titanium white, and I'm going to start scooping some of that up, and I'm going to just start right down here. Now the blue paint is still wet, and I like that so that I can create some softer tones. I'm going to just push gently and create little scoops for some clouds. And then very lightly, barely touching the canvas, just sweep. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more white now, and I'm going to start down here. So just right underneath here, so I'm picking up a little bit of where that blue left off. So we've got a nice gradation here. I'm going to use this same brush to work on the mountain, and I'm going to take my blue again. I'm going to start right here. So just pretty much halfway. You could go a little higher or a little bit lower, it doesn't matter. It won't change it too much. So we'll bring it up to the top of the mountain and then slope down, scoop, bring it back up, down, scoop, and up. So this is where we're going to have our sunshine really kind of just nestled in, how it's rounded here, and then we'll have a little bit of an orange glow coming from it. And we'll have our trees coming up here, so we won't see this as much, but we need to have a little bit of that for the background. Okay, so I'm gonna just start scumbling. So we get rid of this line. Now you might need to pick up a little bit more paint. Okay, and now right away, I'm gonna take some of my yellow, just like this, and I'm gonna go over, this will be a nice sunlit background for our trees, and just add a little bit of color to the mountain. We're not gonna bring it up all the way to the top. I'm gonna go right, partially over that blue and above. So we'll start our glow and the color, the warm color we're gonna have around our sun. And we can add a little bit of yellow down here where we're gonna have this nice bright patch. Okay, so for the next step, I'm gonna switch brushes. I'll wash this one out, and then we'll switch over to a smaller Filbert brush. So I'm gonna use this one, and it's a number 9, okay? So I'm gonna get my brush a little bit wet. I need to take some black now. I'm gonna put my black here because it's a very strong color, right? And I'm gonna take some yellow. So these colors together will make a nice dark forest green color, very earthy and rich. So this painting, the time of day it is for me, and the way I view it, is morning. So like the break of dawn. And I painted a version of this many years ago. It was one of my first paintings. And I'll have a photo that I add in this video so you guys can see what the original looks like. And we're gonna start by pulling a line right down here. So just pull a little bit of water all the way over to the other side and back. You might need to go over it a couple times. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. Okay, and then I'm gonna press with a little bit of water here. Pull and flick. So you wanna line your brush up like this, right here with a tip, and the handle pointing up to the sky or the ceiling. Pull and flick, so it's in your wrist. And this way you get like this instant forest kind of a look. Now we're gonna go all the way to the other side. And at this point, I need to reload my brush. So, and right in here, I'm gonna have the trees get a little bit taller. They're gonna come, we've got one that comes up right about there. And then they're gonna start coming lower here, so we have this sun be more of a focal point in this area. Of course, the focal point is the beautiful tree. And then a little bit more water to help that flow, a little bit of yellow. And then again, press, pull, and flick. Now if you saw me kind of scumble around like this, it's because I want to loosen up that line so that it's not see-through and we don't see that line once it dries. So depending on how quickly your paint is drying, you might have to do that. And if you can't pick that paint up and kind of blend it around, then you might just need to match the base of your trees and go over with a dark color so that it covers up that initial thick line there, because you don't want that. It's not going to look great. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up a little bit higher here, a little bit, and then we can start adding our branches. I always love this part. I love painting trees. I can never get sick of painting trees. So I'm going to really load my brush up here, and I'll take a little bit more yellow, and I want to show you what I do with my brush to load it up when I'm painting trees, when I'm using it to paint trees. I kind of wiggle, push flat, wiggle, because it'll fan it out a little bit by doing that, so you can use it like a fan brush. But I find over the years with all the trees that I've painted, I have more control and a better outcome with the look of my trees. They're a little bit more neat and tidier looking with using this. So I'm going to start on these ones right here. So I just want to turn my brush like this, create a little bit of a peak to the top of my tree, and then because these trees are really far away, I'm just going to paint little tiny baby branches. Now with this size of brush, I'm not having any trouble at all, but if you wanted to use a smaller brush, you definitely can. See, it doesn't take much time at all. Now if you are having trouble with them showing up and say you want to have a little bit more depth, then just add a little bit more black here and there. But it's a nice idea to have a few different shades going on, so you can see a little bit of that olivey, earthy green color underneath and that yellow behind. So we'll just continue along here. And we're going to have some sun rays down in this area, so don't worry if you're not completely happy with the way your trees look, and don't necessarily take too long painting them, because chances are they're going to get kind of camouflaged and painted over slightly. You're just going to have that indication that they're there. Okay, let's keep going. We'll start coming in on this side now. I'm gonna not have them so close together. I'm gonna start just focusing on the top now and leaving a few spaces so I get that sort of feathery look, helping to create distance. And this is another approach to painting my trees. Sometimes I paint them from the top to the bottom, and sometimes I start kind of midway like this, tap, 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 and then let off. And then when I get to the top, I turn my brush. That way you get that kind of natural lean or curve that some trees have. They have a lot of character. When you stop and really look, take the time to look at trees, they're all so different. So a lot of this is going to get covered up here. I'm going to skip this because we've got that big tree. And we'll just add another little bit of a flick in here. Okay, and I'm going to wash my brush off now. Okay, so for our next color, I'm going to be using a little bit of my luminous yellow, I'll take a little bit of white with this. Still going to use my Filbert brush, my smaller Filbert here. And I'm going to concentrate on this area in this scoop. So we've got the blue, we've got the green that we made from the yellow, then we've got a bit of the yellow on the sky, and then we've got this beautiful glowing color. So I'm going to carry through, kind of just add a little bit here. Now these trees are a little bit wet, so I'm probably going to pick up a little bit of that. Just be a little bit careful and mindful. And then I'm going to take some more of the white. And I'm going to add that where I left off. And I'm going to start to work up into the clouds now. A little bit more white. Just rinse that out. As I picked up a little bit of blue, I don't want any green in my brush. I'm going to leave that as is, let that dry a little bit more, and then I'll be adding some more clouds and tint it with a little bit of this yellow. So I'm going to take a little bit of this beautiful orange with the yellow. I'll take a little scoop of each. I even have a little bit of white in there I accidentally picked up, but that'll be just fine. So I'm going to go along the bottom. Add a little bit of water. You know, a little bit of this paint goes a long way, as you can see. You can just pick up a little bit of water and add that around. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more of my orange now. Then I'm going to take some burnt sienna along with it. Maybe a little bit of that yellow in there. There you go, that's a pretty color. And I'm going to go line my brush up right under. You can go over top too, because we're going to have that warmth in here from the sun rays hitting this area. Take a little bit more. And we've got this patch here, this streak in here that's going to be the brightest. So what we want to do is start coming around. That will, with this darker, these darker shades, and that's going to help really draw our eye in. Don't over mix your colors either, guys, otherwise you're going to lose all the in-between pretty colors that you get. Take a little bit of that burnt sienna. It's a little bit darker. I'm going to turn my brush this way, make a skinny-ish line here, and pull. A little bit of water, loosen some of that paint out of here. A little bit more. Okay, so now we've got a nice few different shades here. And I'm going to make this darker by coming in right on the bottom. With that burnt sienna. And go ahead and make it a little bit patchy as well, if you want. then you'll get a little bit of extra shadows in there from where the grass maybe dips in, or where we've got maybe some low-lying like branches or some leaves that have fallen. Okay, so I'm going to set this back here, and we've got another line that's going to come right here, but it's going to be with the yellow and black mixture. It's going to be that forest color. So right here, we're going to start, we're going to leave a little space between the light line under the trees in this patch here that's the brightest. I'm going to just brush over here for a little bit of extra, kind of just camouflage that area and get that blended in. So we can use this brush to create a few little low-lying branches or branches that have fallen. Press and wiggle with your yellow and black mixture. And I'm just going to, you can use a liner brush for this too if you want. Have a few little branches that come down in here. And maybe a little something that comes up. I might add a few smaller, more delicate ones with a different brush after. And then I'm just going to tap right along the frame of the canvas. So part of this darkish color that's getting worked out of my brush is helping to create more of a gradation or ombre effect too. So a little bit more shadow around this side, helping to give more light to this area. Some clean water here. Okay, clean brush, back over to my orange, burnt sienna, and warm yellow. And I'm gonna make this light bright patch here a little bit narrower and make it stand out more by adding a little bit more of this darker color. A little bit of water, help release some of that paint out of my brush. Okay, I'll wash this out. Then I'm going to take, for my final highlight here, white, titanium white, and my warm yellow. So it's a nice and bright color. I'm going to go right across here. I'll use more white this time, scoop it up so I've got a nice good amount here. Okay, so it's nice and bright, and then just a little bit of it over there. Now I can see I need to work on the sky a little bit more, but it's still wet. So I'm going to dry that off in a minute with my hair dryer. But before I do that, I'm going to go over these trees with a little bit of the yellow and create a bit more depth here. So you can see some patchiness here. So I want to take some of this cad yellow, and the trees are dry, so I can just go right over this now. This is so nice because it creates kind of that look like there's some fog, that beautiful, magical, misty morning fog that you get. And before I dry this all off, I'm going to do a little bit more shadow and contrast here. We're going to give this a little bit more depth, and I'm using just black now. I'm only going to add it from here, so I'm going to start with the paint here so I get most of it here, and then as the paint naturally runs out of my brush, it eases off towards this area where I don't really want to have a lot. Okay, and I'm just going to pull up and flick. And if we have a little bit down here, that's okay. Well, like I said, I know most of this is going to be covered up by the big tree trunk, but I just want to have it kind of naturally blend in, just in case a little part's showing and I don't see what I need to see, and I want to have a little bit of these tree branches showing. There, so we've got some more depth now. So let's dry this all off and then we can continue on the sky. So I'm going to go back over to my the number 30 Filbert, and I'm going to take some of my white with a little bit of this luminous yellow, but only a small amount. This is just to tinge the white to give it a little bit of warmth. And I'm going to push gently. So I'm using just this part of the brush, and I'm adding little circles. You can also turn your brush this way. Now right here is where it's going to be the brightest for the sun. Sometimes I like to turn my brush different ways, or just create continuous little scumbling circles like this. Come back in with a little bit of white, again tinted. We can make a few clouds like this stand out a little bit more. And we'll continue just going up here. And then a soft blending out like that. So I go clockwise, counterclockwise, just to get a thin layer over here to make it look misty. And that's just with the leftover paint that I've got on my brush or that I happen to pick up from over here. I'm gonna add a little bit more white. I'm gonna bring it over in this area. A little bit more of my luminous yellow. So just play around, changing it up a little bit and adding that pretty, very, very pretty glow. Now we're gonna paint our sun rays first and then our tree after. And before I do that, I'm gonna take a little bit more, haven't washed my brush out, a little bit more of that luminous yellow. And I'm just gonna start to kind of, well, I've got a bit too much white in my brush, so let me just get rid of that and take a little bit of just straight yellow. We want to do that same technique that we did up here in our clouds, a little dry scumble. To create that really soft, hazy look. And then I'm going to take some of that neon orange, maybe a little bit less. And I'm just gonna go and dust over, add a little bit of this in here. one more little line down here in the foreground though. Just before we do that, I need to make this a little bit narrower still. So I'm going to come in with my burnt sienna and my orange and yellow. Make this a bit narrower. For our sun rays, we're going to be using a flat brush. It's easier to make sun rays with a flat brush so you get a straight edge to your sun rays. Whereas if you use a filbert brush, you can do it, but they're going to have a bit of a curve naturally from the round end that it has. So for our sun rays, we'll take a little bit of water on our brush and we'll add some of this yellow with the white. Okay, and we'll start pulling on an angle. A few lines, some of them you want to have closer together. So this is the area that these sun rays are hitting and lighting up, right? Okay, I've just got a little bit of that neon yellow, warm yellow. I'm gonna make sure I have that white out of my brush now. I've got a nice base here. And then I'll just kind of dust along the bottom to make that disappear. I'm gonna take some orange and some yellow. Let's just use this area for a clean spot. And I'm gonna go over top some of these sun rays. So we're just adding a warm filter over them. We're getting that beautiful warmth from the sun. And we'll add a little bit here. You can add some all along if you want. Okay, so now we can begin working on our tree. And for the tree, I'm going to be using this Filbert brush again, number 9. I'm going to take a combination of black and burnt sienna. I'm going to get a nice rich color here. And a little bit of water. Okay, so it comes right down from here. We're going to start it right here. Really big tree. Makes a nice big focal point. And then we're gonna go straight over to the center of the canvas. So like a diagonal line that curves down. And we'll fill that in. Might need to go back quite often for a little bit of water. And right from here, we're gonna pull and scoop. So a little scoop like this. And then right up here for another branch. Load your brush up again. I like to have a good amount on the tip of my brush to use. Right from here, add another one. Again, that scoop. And then a larger one right there. And the indication that there's another one there that we can't see because it just goes off the canvas. We're gonna bring this almost all the way over. Leave a little peek through there. I'm gonna tidy up the edge here and clean this up. Okay, so take a little bit more of my burnt sienna, and I'm kind of just gonna turn my brush like this and just sort of graze, like I would use a palette knife, just to pick up a few little spots, some lighter areas. I'm gonna wash this out and we're gonna start adding some foliage, and then we're gonna go over top of our foliage with some other branches. For the foliage, we're going to be using, I'm using anyways, a 1-inch oval mop by Princeton. You can use any other little stipple or mop brush. I'll show you a few for examples. So here's another one. This one's an angle one. You can get them in different shapes and sizes. And then we've also got a round one here. Okay, so there's different ways. If you don't have any of these, feel free to use a Filbert brush to create your stipples and your foliage for your treetops, as well as a fan brush. But this is my preferred choice. So we want to work with our lightest highlighted leaves on our trees to the darkest ones. So this color here, this light yellow, this one is what we're going to use first. So it's important to keep it nice and dry, and this is how you will load your brush. We want to take to ensure that it's nice and bright and doesn't turn green when it's over top of this blue. Let's take a little bit of white, tap, tap, tap to keep that foliage shape. Okay. And I'm going to start over the top here. I want to leave little bits of that blue sky showing through. So that's one section. Then we're going to go over here and add just a little bit more over here. And see how when I tap, I'm picking up my brush and I'm turning it, lining it up just so that it looks more random and natural. We're going to come right over here, big one here, never our bowing branch coming down here right in this area. We need this beautiful bright gold. Now come in here, so we can continue along here. It's going to start to get a little bit darker up here, but we just want to have it right up to that main branch. And then I'm going to go just into, no white, just into my yellow. You can see how it changes. You see the blue through it, and with the blue through it, it'll look a little bit green, but we're going to break that by adding a little bit of that orange and burnt sienna after. A little bit peeking through here. Okay, so I'm going to go into the next color now. A little bit of orange, a little bit of white, and add a little in here. I'm not worried if I go over top of my main branches because I can clean that up with black easily after. So here we're going to have this big one that comes down here. You're going to need to leave a little space in between so we can see those trees. I'm going to start coming inside some of these areas now and adding more color. a little bit more of my white with my yellow, and I'm gonna add highlight on the outside this time. We'll go around the side like this. Okay, and now we're gonna take burnt sienna. And just little taps like this. Now you can add this wet on wet, meaning your paint underneath is still wet, or you can add it dry, over dry paint I mean. I come around the sides here. We've got a little bit more of a shadow on this side, so they're going to be a bit darker. Let's get a little bit more of that tap, 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 so we keep that nice shape all the time. Okay, you can wash this brush off now. I'm going to start adding some of the branches down here while that dries a little bit. So over to my #1 liner brush. I'm going to take that burnt sienna with a little bit of black, water, twist and roll my brush. And I'm going to start right here and kind of just wiggle. Create little old crooked branches. Okay, now I'm going to take some more black. More black than the burnt sienna. And I'm going to come right down here. See, start from the big branch and curve over. More water. Start adding these little baby branches. Less pressure where you want to have some smaller ones. The shakier you are, the better your branches will look. And this is when I can come in and around here and clean these up. Let's add a little bit of a bump right there to make this look a little bit like it's coming down here a little bit more. And then I'm just going to kind of push up here and add a few bumps and broken branch areas. So now we can start coming in and adding all these little branches, and the foliage is really going to stand out now once we do this. You can always add more foliage over top if for some reason you don't like how your branches turned out. go off the edge here. And just add a little bit of that burnt sienna. I'm going to start working on this side now. We have a few branches coming down here. If you're finding that your paint's not flowing easily out of your brush, you just need to add more water. With a liner brush, you use more water. It really makes a big difference. So I'm going to do a little line right here, and then we're going to take it down into two sections like this. And we're going to add a little branches, these little wispy ones off of each side. Got one that's trying to reach over here. And then one that comes up here. I'm going to add the second one right here. It goes up and over top of that one. And then that one splits off into two. You just have as many little branches as you want to add off of these ones. And if you have any difficulty following along and trying to paint every single branch that I'm doing, don't worry at all. You can add your own branches going in whatever direction you want them to go in. I use a little bit more black in some areas to make sure that, or make some of them just like really have a lot more depth and shadow to them. Make this one thicker in here. I don't want to have this one here, so I'm going to try and scumble this off. But if you are gentle with your brush and scrub and push that off, you can, most of the time, take care of it. So I want to come in now with a little bit more of my white and my neon yellow warm. And I'm just going to kind of tap along here. And then I'm going to add a few little dabs. A few little extra highlights, so that some of the foliage is over top of some of these branches. You want to have a mixture of both, a little bit of both, right? I'm going to take a little bit of that neon orange, just really lightly. Add some soft light effects in here coming from the other side. And then a little bit of that orange tapped down in here to make this show up a little bit better. And just to add some more color. I'm going to slightly go over this so it kind of gradually gets into that orange. So I'll add a few last finishing touches here with my black and my liner brush. Just a few more dark branches here to make this stand out. Okay, so this painting is all done. I hope you guys had fun watching and I hope you learned a lot today. I can't wait to see your versions of this one. Enjoy painting it, and I'll see you guys all soon in my next video. Bye!